All right, so the big thing that we're going to talk about in this is part, whole. It's really important when kids are trying to look at the relationship between subtraction and addition, they understand that the parts and the whole are all leading to the same number. So let's take an example of 7. All right, so lots of practice with kids putting one whole down as the base and then 2 parts on top. Okay. And before we talk about the addition and subtraction story related to this, we want to make sure that they understand what these parts are called. So this is our whole. Okay, so we could write that in the top here. And then these are our parts. Okay, so we've got our whole and our 2 parts. So I'm going to put my whole in the top box and I'm going to put my 2 parts in the bottom box. Okay, so I can see that these 2 parts together make that whole. So lots of practice looking at that relationship of wholes and parts. Okay, and then we've got one combination of wholes and parts for 7, but we could also look at other combinations. So that's one combination. But another thing that we want kids to understand is that there are multiple ways, multiple combinations of 2 parts making that whole. Okay, and then you can get into the relationship of you know, if the whole is an odd number, then there has to be an even and an odd part. Or if the whole is an even number, it could be made up of 2 odds or 2 evens. So say if I switched out my whole and made it 8, then I could make up 8 either with 2 odd parts, or I could make up 8 with 2 even parts. Okay. Once again, we're looking at all the multiple ways you can make those wholes. So if that's my whole, then this could be one combination of my parts. Or if that's my whole, this could be another combination of my parts. Okay. Once kids understand that relationship of whole and parts, we can then play games, for example, with the feely bag. I can say, okay, I've got my whole, that one's staying out. I'm putting 2 parts in the feely bag. Okay. So imagine that this is my feely bag. Okay. And I put my 2 parts in, I get the child. So I've already identified those 2 parts. So an 8 and a 6 and a 2 to make 8. They're my 2 parts. I put these both in the feely bag. I ask the child to take out 1 part, and then I ask them to tell me what part is still in the feely bag. Okay. So we're just getting them to think about, well, we already knew that they were the 2 parts. Here is one of the parts. What's left in the feely bag? I think it's a 6. Great. Pull it out. Yes, it's a 6. Okay. And then you might be looking at 2 other parts to make 8. So this time we're going to look at 5 and 3. Let's put those 2 parts into the feely bag. What are the 2 parts? The 2 parts are 5 and 3. And what is the whole? The whole is 8. So lots of this practice of part, whole first before you worry about subtraction and addition. Okay, so I can see those 2 parts make that whole. Let's put them both into the feely bag. Child pulls one out. It's a 5. What part is still left in the feely bag? I can see the missing part is here. I can see it's 3, and there's my 3. Great, pull that out. Okay, so lots of practice with part, whole. Once the students understand that relationship of the 2 parts making the whole, then we want to focus on the addition story and the subtraction story as that relationship about those 2 parts and the whole. So I've got my 2 parts, my 3 and my 5, and I've got my whole is 8. So let's write an addition story. So we could say 5 plus 3 equals 8. And I want them to think about, well, how else could I write that? What other way? So 3 plus 5 equals 8. So we need them to understand that commutative property of addition. It doesn't matter which way I turn that around. Those 2 parts are making that whole. And remembering it doesn't work the same way for subtraction. Okay. So now we have to think about, okay, so if these are my 2 parts and I take one of those parts away, right? Now we're talking about the relationship to subtraction. Now, what we first of all need to say are what are the 2 parts in this addition story and which ones are the whole. So this one's a part, this one's a part, and this one's the whole. Okay, so we've got these 2 parts and this whole. Which one is the part in this one? This is a part, this is a part, and this is the whole. Okay. Really important that kids understand that. Okay, so my 2 parts are making up that whole. All right, now we're going to take away one of those parts. Okay, so I've taken away the the 3. Okay, what is the other part that's left? It's the 5. And what is the whole? It's the 8. Okay, now you can do lots of other practice. You can put pegs in and you can take pegs away. But remembering it's good to work in the whole numbers rather than just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So once we're at this stage, we should be working in whole numbers. So now we flip this around. So now we're saying the whole is 8. Okay, so all together here, we've got 8. We're taking away one of the parts, which is a 3. What is the part that's left? It's a 5. Okay, let's put the back together. So once again, we're labeling these. This is our whole, this is our part, and this is our other part. And we want kids to see, well, these were the same parts we had here. We've just now taken them away from the whole. So rather than putting them together to make the whole, we're taking them away from the whole. So let's look at what other way we could juggle these parts in a subtraction sentence. So 8 take away. We've already taken away the 3. What other part do we have? We've got a 5. So we've got 8 take away 5. If we've taken away that 5, what part do we have left? It's a 3. Okay, so which one was our whole? This was our whole. This was our part. And sorry, I've gone off the screen. And this is the other part. Okay, so we've got those, that whole and the 2 parts. So with all of this, we want to talk about that relationship between the 2 parts and the whole. Okay, so lots of games, lots of practice, always talking about the parts and the whole. And if they can see that it doesn't matter which one of these we're talking about, we are always talking about the same 2 parts and the same whole, whether it's addition or subtraction. That's the understanding that we really want them to have. Hope that helps.